Hello and welcome once again to Big Boss Battles, Big Boss Babble. A slightly reduced lineup this week. We have with us Mr. Dan.
Hello.
We have from the United States of America, it's George.
Hello.
And our cousin from down under, it's Toby.
G'day.
Hey, we're all here again. Well, actually, we're not. We're missing people. But never mind, we'll crack on anyway. So, who's been playing some fun stuff this week? What's been going on? Dan?
I've played a little bit of Nidhogg 2, and I've also played some Observer. I don't know how you're quite meant to pronounce that because it's got the little chevron at the start and then not the chevron, the pointy arrow, the less than Observer underscore.
Yes.
I've been playing, which
That's
stars Rutger Hauer. I can't say that either. The actor Rutger Hauer, who really didn't seem like he wanted to be there, although it was an interesting game.
Rutger Hauer.
That's it. There we go. And I haven't played any of the Bloober games before, and I don't really like being led down dark corridors and made to look at things before they go. Ugh! But that game does kind of do that. Although the magic does wear off a little bit when they actually killed me in the game. There's this weird thing that follows you and starts kind of trying to kill you in one of the early dream sequences. And the second that happened, all of a sudden, all of the magic and fear was completely shattered. And I was just laughing at everything instead, which I don't think was intended. But that's what I've been playing.
I've been playing Cat Quest. I love Cat Quest. I can't say that enough. Meow. It's a great game.
See, I don't even know what this is, so I'm going to have to look it up.
It's an open world RPG. It's adorable. It's cute. It's super simple to play.
Aww.
It's isometric, isn't it? I mean, what I liked is the way that you kind of you're this big character on the open world, just going around decking people, and then you're almost exactly the same size when you go into the dungeons and do the same stuff.
Right, yeah. It's like you're traveling across the world map you'd normally see in an RPG where you'd enter a town or something like that, but in this case, it's the entire game. And it's really fun. It's really neat. I beat it in about 9 hours, and I'm going to be reviewing it very soon.
How about you, Toby? What have you been playing?
Played some GTA the other day.
Which
Still going
one?
Strong online. 5
Oh,
online.
5 more.
Online. Who knows what it is anymore?
I thought you played Phantom Trigger and you didn't like it.
Yes, I played that as well. I don't really know. It's like it's a.
It looked interesting when I checked it out.
Yeah, it looks really interesting. I was like really excited for it, and it's bland and unconfusing. It's just go through these levels and hit things, but we don't know what weapon does what. Why does this one do more damage than the other? What's that use? Does this weapon do damage? Who knows? Not me.
Was the combat unsatisfying?
Yes, confusing. Very confusing.
I have yet to check out the final release version, so I think I'll probably need to check that out now.
Excellent. And as for me, this week, I'll probably talk more about one of the games later, but I've been teaching my son the wonders of RimWorld this week, and he's picked it up quite quickly. Quicker than I did, certainly. And he's enjoying himself on that. He's become quite addicted to that now. And of course, like I said, I'll speak about it more later, but I've been playing Sonic Mania this week, which is absolutely glorious.
Any more murderous cats?
Not on this occasion. Anyway, let's move on. First topic this week is the physical versions of Pokemon Gold and Silver for the 3DS, because it's a virtual console kind of jobber. They're giving out. Well, you can buy physical versions, but all that is in the box is a download code. What is the point in that?
It is a bit odd selling a physical version of a game that has a digital version inside it, because those digital versions are now available on the storefront at the same time and basically the same price as the physical version of the game. So the majority of people who are buying physical versions are either doing it for gifting because they haven't got stable enough internet to warrant downloading it on download, or because they want to buy a physical collector's edition because they still value the kind of fluff and piff and waffle that you get with buying a physical edition of the game. So to open it up and there to just be a little code on a little slip of paper probably is a little bit shattering to definitely the latter, if not all three of those groups of people.
So, someone want to fill me in on this story? What exactly is going on?
Well, it's literally as I said it. So Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver are being released on the 3DS Virtual Console, but they are releasing physical versions that you buy in a 3DS box, but all that is in the box is a code to download it from the Virtual Console. There's no cartridge, there's no nothing in there, it's just a download code.
Is there like a sticker or something? Anything in the box?
To be honest, from what I've read, nothing. It's just a 3DS box that you open it up and there's a code inside the box.
Pokemon fans are weird. They will buy anything with Pokemon related to. I'm not surprised. It's just Pokemon, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand from a certain perspective that collectors like to have those, you know, their collections out on their shelf, and things like that. Maybe, I mean, if it was exactly the same price, why not? I mean, the end result is going to be the same. Plus, you've got a box. but yeah, it does seem a bit odd. I mean, even like Dan was saying, the point of giving it maybe as a gift for a child is still, I don't know. I'd be a bit disappointed if I got this box and then just had a download code.
Yeah, it would suck. What's been the reaction to it so far? Has it been positive? Has it been negative?
It's mainly negative, to be honest. It just seems a bit pointless. I mean, I suppose the good thing about it is they're not charging any more for it in a physical version than the digital download version. So I suppose if you buy it physically, you are getting more, even if it is just an empty box.
Yeah, you get cardboard.
Yeah,
Use a box or something.
You could.
The first release of it was on the Game Boy, wasn't it? Wasn't this the?
Yeah, it was. Basically,
one
it's second gen. Yeah, it was the second gen for. Well, it worked on the Game Boy, but it was technically Game Boy Color as well.
So many people will be buying it to get access to certain Pokemon that only occurred in that or other ones, or just to experience a different part of the story.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, if you've not kept. Sorry.
No, I've played one. Sorry. I just had a sudden realization. I played one of these. Did they re-release them on the 3DS? Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
Yeah,
I've played.
They're the remakes. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fine. I don't know.
But this is now the virtual versions of the original versions. But if you've not kept up with this, there's now a thing called Pokemon Bank, which is an online service that you can transfer your Pokemon to save them. But it works cross games. And they're introducing this Pokemon Bank system into the older games. So even the new versions of Pokemon Red and Blue, the original games, have this Pokemon Bank built into it now. So you can transfer games from the original Pokemon straight into Sun and Moon if you want to.
That's cool.
Which is a kind of cool feature. I mean, it's going slightly off the point of the physical version, but it's still a good little feature to have in there, because now you can literally, you know, cross multiple generations. I mean, there are ways of getting game, you know, but previously you had to go back and have the original hardware for all of them, and you could gradually go through all the games and trade up and get them to the latest version. But now you can just do it through the Pokemon Bank, which is quite a handy little feature.
The Pokemon Bank, when they first launched that cost. Does it still cost?
I don't know. I think it might still cost, but it's not much, to be honest.
When Heart Gold came out, and whatever one came out after that, which I think was Black or possibly, I can't remember. Either way, I played a couple of generations in a row, actually. Most of the ones that launched on the DS and 3DS, stopping near the end, just after they added in Ultra, Mega, Super, Digimon evolutions. But the thing the Pokemon Bank brought to mind was the fact that by allowing that, they could simply concentrate on making new regions that didn't feature previously used Pokemon. Whereas it was almost like they had to use some of the previous Pokemon in the new generations in order to promote trading. I.e., you can't not have a Charmander in, 4 generations in a row, because otherwise it's impossible for people to get hold of them when the consoles swap. So the bank then allows people to, it allows them to not have to have that in there once every 3 or 4 goes.
Yeah, but it also it and we are sort of deviating from the point now, but never mind. It also brings up the fact that from a lore perspective, they don't have to come up with reasons as to why all these old specific region Pokemons are now in a different region, or like I think, for example, in Gold and Silver, you could complete the game. I think I can't remember what the bloody regions are now, but you completed the game, and then once you finished the game, you went back to the region of the first game, and that then enabled you to get all the original region's Pokemon. If they're now doing the bank thing, they don't have to do that. They can just go, here's the new region, here's the new Pokemon. If you want the old ones, transfer them from your old game. They don't have to come up with weird lore to be able to do it. Plus the fact, I mean, it must be getting ridiculous for them to fit it all in. Because there's over 750 Pokemon now. To put all of those into a single game is getting a bit crazy.
But to bring it back to the point, yes, they're selling an empty cardboard box with a code in it, and that's kind of silly. I mean, Pokemon fans are great. I love Pokemon fans. I was a Pokemon fan, but it seems very odd that they're just selling an empty box with a code in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first. I mean, this is the first time Nintendo's done it. It has been done before. I mean, slightly differently, like Metal Gear Solid 5 on PC. You bought the physical box, it came with a disc, everything looked like it was golden. What was on that disc? A Steam installer. That was all that was on there. In the box was a code for Steam and a disc with the Steam installer program on it. The game wasn't on the disc. And there's also been special editions of games. You know, like the big, here's a statue and here's a fingernail of the main character and here's a map of the protagonist's bathroom and whatever else that you get in a thing. But you got all this cool stuff, but not the game. So
from the sounds of it, it sounds like you are against buying special editions of things. I'm just gathering that.
No, I'm just making up stuff. I like the look of special edition things, but I don't often see the point of the price of them because I think they're usually quite ridiculous for what you get.
But if you own the fingernail, you can clone the person.
Well, that's true, you see, but I've not as yet seen a special edition with a legitimate fingernail in it. Fake ones, perhaps, but never a legitimate one. But anyway, let's move on. Actually, that last point takes us on to our next topic, which is the general price of games these days.
Yes, and that would be my subject. That's what I brought in today.
Go ahead, George.
So, a recent article, let's see who posted it. It was Polygon, basically talking about how games or developers don't necessarily know how to price their games. Basically, what happened was that with games like Sonic Mania, which we're talking about a little bit later, being $20 and being very successful. What was the other one? It was Hellblade being what? It was very cheap. Everyone thought it was $29.99 for US. But basically the point is that, these games are really good. They're doing very successful. They're doing a lot of sales, but they're vastly underpriced. According to Steam Spy, they've basically been kind of looking around and noticing that people are charging way less than they should. They're charging way less than they should be for their games. The 33% discount, basically when the game first comes out, is just killing a lot of sales, and basically pointing to the fact that maybe developers don't know how to price their own games.
There's no real market research for this, and people, without sounding really silly, people who spend money on games are always going to complain that games are too expensive, except for when they're too cheap. So, like, when I was working in the shops, working in retail, we'd get people coming in and complaining about prices all the time. Now, obviously, we were actually quite expensive, especially compared to selling online and compared to the PC storefront, the digital PC storefront, which is actually cheaper still than the PC physical versions, which were cheaper still than the console physical versions. So, physical stores didn't really stand a chance. But now that that's out of the way, and now that in many ways publishers are out of the way as well, notably all of the examples that have been given are, self-publishing indies or indie publishers who have arrived on the scene recently, or self-publishing publishers like Sega, for instance. There is no real classification of what's a good price and what's not. It's personal. I mean, if I'm really excited for a game and it comes out at $29.99, I may well buy that anyway. If it's a little bit more, I'll probably hesitate. My golden price, really, where I will almost instantly buy it if I'm interested in it, is about $7.99 or $9.99. But obviously, I play a lot of indie games. I don't buy a lot of AAA games, and so I'm probably a bad person to price games like that on. Yeah.
Well, we've been seeing a lot of publishers entering the indie field as well, and prices haven't really changed all that much, have they?
It depends. I mean, in stores, which is probably what I'm strongest at talking about, when the new generation started, all of a sudden the physical prices crept all the way up from what is normally $39.99 in the UK up to $59.99, and for a while everything launched there unless it was budget, unless it would have been, you know, launched at £20 over here. It was launching for 35 or 40 over here. So that naturally pushed things up because of the new generation. I don't know if that's dropped now actually, but it certainly went on for longer than it did with the previous console generation. So, but I think that was a case of charging more because something was new, and that doesn't translate across to PC. And I mean, is the reason Sonic Mania's included in this because it released cheap on consoles as well? Or, I mean, I assume the gist of this topic is on the PC front.
Yeah, it's basically the PC front because it's from Steam Spy mostly.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, there definitely isn't a sweet spot when it comes to pricing games. I recently bought Kickmen, and I think that launched for, I think it was less than £3.99, which is ridiculous. I would have bought that at $6.99. You know, I would have bought that probably at $9.99. I would have said from what I had seen, but it all depends on hype levels. And as marketeers and developers and publishers are having to rapidly adapt how they pitch and market games, there's no real way of seeing how many people are actually interested in it. I follow a lot of devs on Twitter, and they go like, oh, the wish list is amazing now. There are so many people with my game on the wish list, or so many people following it. And then about a week after launch, they go, how am I meant to convert all of these people from my wish list into buying my game? What is wrong? And that could be many things. That could be price. That could be people just simply automatically deleted the email that Steam sent them telling them it was out. It might be that they haven't been on for various reasons. I think this is a direct reaction to people not understanding how to communicate with their audience at the minute because of the rapid changes that we've gone through with publishing and digital marketplaces.
So in general, you do think that indie games are underpriced, and what do you think about AAA games? Are they too pricey?
I think AAA games, I think really, what with the fact that, I don't know, I think the terms AAA and indie really are going to have to die soon because of the caliber of games that are coming out of both sides. It's really down to team sizes now. I mean, when Kingdom Come Deliverance, I'm sure I've got that wrong, when that eventually comes out, you know, I will gladly pay full price for that. In my mind, that is like a AAA game of old, you know. But even if FIFA came out at 20 quid or the new Call of Duty came out at 20 quid, I'm probably not going to drop money on it. And that's not an aversion to AAA or an aversion to AAA pricing. It's just I don't like those games, so I can't really compare. I don't think I've bought any big blockbuster for some time now, to be honest with you. And I think that's just my taste in games. So maybe it's best that someone else takes the floor on this one.
Yeah, well, I mean, to give my opinions on this, I mean, I think prices are coming down generally across the board, I think, and I think it's for multiple reasons. One is that indie games are getting much more high profile now, and they're putting out experiences that a lot of the time are at the same level or higher than a lot of AAA titles, and they're selling them for a lot less money. So I think that's forcing the AAA games to come down. And obviously, because we see, you know, even if a game does come out, you're going to get it works on the same thing. They've always done it. You'll have the early adopters that will pay 60 quid for it. And then literally within a couple of weeks, it will go down to 40 and then steadily drop off, right? They'll get the early adopters and then they don't really care. But I think there's multiple reasons. I think, so you've got the indies are very good, which is forcing the AAAs to come down. But I've also got the fact that digital distribution is cheaper. And I think now developers and publishers are actually getting to the point now where they're going, well, you know what? Maybe we can pass those savings on to the user. Whereas before, they never used to do that. It was just, I mean, the PlayStation Store is probably a prime example where the games are the same price whether you buy it physically or digitally, and I know the reasons behind it, and it's because of retailers basically forcing them to keep the prices that high, because then it obviously undercuts the retailers and they'll get even less sales than they already do, which is a problem that basically I think manufacturers, game developers and publishers almost need to cut off retail now. It's getting to the point where they don't really need them anymore, and then it will make consumers more happy because the games will be cheaper. And I also think that almost that argument that the piracy argument, I don't buy games because they're too expensive. I think it's almost starting to hit home now. It's like, well, maybe they are. We can now save money just doing this stuff digitally. Maybe if we pass them on, people will buy games more, and it's almost coming all coming together again now. Developers are getting it. Users are now happy because the games are cheaper, and it's just getting to that point where it's almost a universally better place now for everyone.
So you think the prices are just about right, or you think they're too low?
No, I think they're right, and to be honest, I can see games actually getting even cheaper from the AAA side of things. The indie stuff is fair enough. I mean, like Dan said, with Kickmen wasn't even marketed. I don't think he would have been able to put it out for a tenner. Maybe you would have got a lot of people that followed the Twitter storm that happened when he was developing it, but that worked as its own marketing. Apart from that, there wasn't really any marketing around that game, so it couldn't really be pushed out at much more. And I think now with the internet, a lot of developers don't even have to go out and market themselves that much, because word of mouth works so quickly now. If you can get your game to one big YouTuber, you'll get yourself 250,000 sales just from that one thing.
Although some people have reported, I've seen a lot of people saying that they got it on the biggest YouTuber and they saw a dozen sales come out of it, because some people just don't have an audience that bites like that, and so that is somewhat unreliable. On the subject of what you said about launching with no PR, did you see that Mike Biffle, formerly of Bossa Games and now of Mike Biffle Games or Biffle Games, the guy who did Thomas Was Alone and Volume, just completely flash launched a game? I was on the way back from work and he put up a tweet saying, I just wanted to test something out, so in 5 minutes we're launching our game with no marketing, and then 5 minutes later it launched. And that I watched the retweets on his tweet climb up and up and up and up. The obvious question is, how many people are on Twitter that will engage with that? Is that just a bubble? Are you just being retweeted by game developers? And I suppose we won't know until he starts talking about sales. But yeah, marketing in this day and age is an odd thing.
Well, to wrap up, the reason I found this article so interesting is because I do think I do think indie developers might not be charging enough, to be honest with you. There's a lot of saturation, like you brought up in the chat, Dan. There's a lot of games on Steam that are just flooding the market. But there's also been a backlash when developers have tried to charge more, or when they tried to change their prices, like Arc did. They tried to change the price and everybody lost their collective minds. So I do think there is a little bit of I don't think prices, when it comes to indie developers, AAA, they do need to come down. But when it comes to indie developers, I do think some of them do kind of undersell their games. For God's sakes, what we do at the website, we review games that probably a lot of people haven't heard of, and they're all fantastic. They're all amazing, and they don't. Sometimes I don't think they're always charging enough. And I think that's why I was kind of interested about this article the most, is it was really kind of interesting to me.
Yep, definitely something that will probably come up again in the future, because it's something that's always going to be on the cards. Anyway, next up is me talking about my favourite game at the moment, and that is, of course, Sonic Mania. Everyone's heard the hype, and I'm just going to go out and say that, yes, the hype is real. This is the Sonic game that we've been waiting for 20 years, and thank God it wasn't Sonic Team that made it. This is basically the greatest ROM hack that you could ever ask for, and it was made by obviously some of the greatest members of the Sonic ROM hacking community in Pagoda West, and Christian Whitehead, who headed up some. I think Pagoda West Games were doing the Sonic HD remaster before that got shut down, and obviously Christian Whitehead built an entirely new Sonic engine, made Sonic 1 run on it, showed it to Sega, and they went, yeah, okay, we'll release that on iPhone and Android. So he got in the door that way. So I think it was good that Sega have just gone, we don't know what we're doing anymore. Have Sonic, make the game that everyone loves, and they have. They've placed it in the right place as well. They've basically gone, Sonic 4 didn't happen. Forget about that. Forget the 3D games. This is a sequel to Sonic and Knuckles, and the storyline behind it is basically that, Eggman / Robotnik has come along, and it's not the Chaos Emeralds generally this time. It's time crystals, which you may remember from Sonic CD, but he's captured all the time crystals, and that gives them free reign to dump in all these old levels. So the opening of the game starts out exactly the same as Sonic 3. You're coming in the Sonic Flyer, you land, you see Dr. Robotnik pull one of these time crystals out of the ground, all goes a bit wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey, and you end up in Green Hill Zone from the first game. And it just carries on from there. They muck around with time to give, that framework that they can bring in these old levels. So you start in Green Hill Zone, and what they've done to the levels is absolutely amazing. So you start in Green Hill Zone, and pretty much the entirety of Act 1 of Green Hill Zone from the original Sonic game is there. But when you get to the end of that level, it's not the end of the level in Sonic Mania. It segues seamlessly into the beginning of Act 2, and then it goes crazy. They start implementing new mechanics. So there's zip lines in Green Hill Zone, and there's different pipes that work in different ways, and it all starts going crazy. And they've implemented the new drop dash. So where you can push down on the D-pad and then hammer the button to speed up. You can now do that in mid-air. So you just hold jump, you start spinning in mid-air, and as soon as you land, you zip off. And they've also got like power-ups from Sonic 3, but in the original Green Hill Zone. So you can get the fire shield in Green Hill, and it's absolutely amazing. And the bosses are some of the most inventive bosses I've ever seen. I want to say about the second world boss, which is Chemical Plant Zone, again from a redone from Sonic 2, but I'm not sure if I should spoiler it or not. I'll give it a spoiler warning, right? So, spoiler warning. There we go. If you're still listening now, you can't blame me. Right, so Chemical Plant Zone again from Sonic 2. Again, Act 1, very similar to the first level, and then it introduces all these new mechanics, such as there's, what are they called? Syringes that you jump on, and they push your stuff into a water, and it makes it all jellified, and you can bounce on it, and there's new kind of pipes where you can choose which direction you go when you get to them. But at the end, you're in one of these pipes, and it dumps you down into this little machine, and Dr. Robotnik's in a little window next to you, and it's basically Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, which is
oh wow.
So, and you play one round of Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine against Robotnik, and that's how you beat that particular boss. If you win, he blows up and gets out, and then you drop out of a pipe. And when I saw that, I was like, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. And there's loads of little things in different levels, little shout outs to different games, like I think the Fifth World Boss. There's loads of sound effects from Shinobi in it. There's references to Daytona, USA in Studiopolis Zone. There's little vans that say Hornet on them, and they send you around via radio waves. And there's a lottery machine that you go in, and it's like Gallup Lottery from Daytona as well. And yeah, it's a pure love letter to Sonic. It's by the fans for the fans, and it's, I think, exactly what Sonic fans have wanted for 20 years, and that's why it's been received so well.
When I played it earlier on in the year, I noticed that it still followed what I consider the real kind of perk or the real benefit or the good bit of the Sonics that I grew up playing, which is there's kind of multiple routes through the game. I played the Studiopolis level, I think probably at 2 different events. And the first time I played it, it didn't really click. I was annoyed. It reminded me of why I hated Sonic. I kind of missed a jump, and then I landed something, and then the game was almost like, you're going too slow, no. As Sonic regularly did to me. You can't get round this loop-de-loop, yada, yada, yada. But then when I started the level from scratch, I made a jump, tried a different route, and found it all a lot easier. The pace was different, and so it really felt the Studiopolis Zone. like it was something that the third or fourth or fifth time that you played it, you could memorize those little shortcuts again. You could get good at the game through repeating playing the game. Whereas I think every Sonic that I've played since Sonic Chaos, showing my age, has made me feel like, nope, you've just got to bloody wing it. Just go as fast as you can and just hit jump, maybe to the beat of Living La Vida Loca, and you'll get all the way through the level, and it'll be brilliant in high school, mate.
I mean, that's the point with this, is that one of the bigger complaints about the original Sonic games was, when they marketed it, it was just, this is what they went, oh, blast processing, blah, 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 really fast. And they showed off Green Hill Zone, it's super speedy and all that kind of stuff. But then you hit something like Labyrinth Zone in the original game, and the pace just slowed right down. You had to be very cool, calm, and collected. Now, on this new one, they've kind of kept that speed going no matter what world you're in. Even if you're in a water world, there's fast areas in the game. There's not a lot of times where you have to, really slow your pace down and do careful little jumps. It really keeps the pace up a lot of the time, and it works. I mean, like you say, you just hold right and press jump a few times. It's not that simple, because you're going to be going super fast in both directions in a lot of the levels. But the pace is kept way up there, a lot more than the older games. But I think people have accepted that more because they were always the level that people remembered better. They liked the ones where there was that speed, and it was just 90 miles an hour all the time. And
I have 3 questions.
Yep.
I have 3 questions. One, is there water levels?
I mean, there are water parts. I mean, for example, like I say, they've remixed original levels, so there's even water sections in the Green Hill Zone right at the beginning of the game. Not big ones, but there are sections where you can go underwater. Because like Dan was saying, in the old, some of the old games where there might be a top route or a bottom route. There's so many more routes now, and especially considering you've got Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles right from the outset, so you can play as Knuckles. There are places where you can only get to as Knuckles because he can climb walls. So there'll be a jump that Sonic can't get to, but Knuckles can. But pure water levels, if there is, I haven't got to them yet. I've got stuck on a particular boss, which is so random, and it's actually quite annoying me. I can't remember what level it is, but it's you meet up with Metal Sonic, and it's the end of Stardust Speedway, because that's from Sonic CD that they've put in there. And it's Metal Sonic, but now Metal Sonic's made his own robot Sonic. So it's kind of a weird Inception thing. I think it's called Hypersonic. And yeah, you have to wait for him to go into a ball and then try and bounce him like a pinball into Metal Sonic at the top. And it's extremely random and very tricky to pull off, and I haven't managed to get past it yet. But I would imagine there is a water level in the game. I haven't even looked at the list of levels yet. I haven't watched videos. I don't want to. It's one of those games where I just want to experience it myself.
Well, now I'm curious if you turn into a werehog or end up making out with a human chick in the middle of the game.
No, there's none of that random stuff. That's what I mean. This is pure old school Sonic. No gimmicks.
It sounds fantastic. It sounds like they did a lot of fan service and they gave the people finally what they wanted.
Yeah.
It sounds like they also took a lot of good ideas from a lot of other Sonic games and kind of slammed them into one game from the sounds of it. It sounds really cool.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It is, like I said, it is literally made by fans of the game in the first place, and it is kind of a best of with additional stuff as well. So it's fantastic, and there's easily a lot of mileage for them to carry on this series, and I can imagine this is done very well, and I can imagine them carrying it on and doing more because they've got so much extra stuff they can pull from.
Like. What do you mean by like extra stuff they can pull? What do you mean?
Well, like I said, they've pulled in Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1, and they've pulled in Chemical Plant Zone from Sonic 2 and Stardust Speedway from Sonic CD. There's so many other worlds that they could still remake and put in extra games. And obviously I've played through I think 3 completely new zones as well that are completely new to the game. So if they kept that going, they could easily probably get up to 4 or 5 games before they run out of stuff to steal.
I mean, that's the question. I'm going to jump to Sega's defense here. That's the question. Will people just keep playing the same thing over again? I mean, isn't there eventually you have to have some sort of innovation, some new ideas brought in? It
depends. Look at the new Super Mario Bros. Series. There's been 7 of them. They're all pretty much the same. But people will still buy them. because sometimes you hit that point. This is how this game should be. Obviously, people want to. At this point, I think now they've seen Sonic Mania, people want to kind of put the 3D Sonics completely aside, pretend they don't exist, and they want to play 2D Sonic. And I think there is a lot of mileage there.
So you think they've hit the right formula with this Sonic, and they should just keep it that way? But it was kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, because I mean, this does feel like a natural extension. This feels like, okay, Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic Mania. Like if this had come out, say, 18 years ago on the 32X, it would fit perfectly. It's a perfect extension. The fact we've had to wait 20 years for it is a bit annoying, but it is a true sequel that people have wanted.
Correcting the timelines, then.
Yeah, basically.
It's fallen out of time, and it's suddenly appeared here, and everyone's happy and pretending.
And that's what I mean. The storyline kind of plays with it. It plays with the fact that time is broken, and you're getting shoved around all these different worlds from different time periods.
I heard that Sonic Generations went down quite well. That had 3D and 2D bits mixed in.
Yeah,
didn't it?
And to be honest, if you read about Sonic Forces, you will see. I mean, furry fan art pandering aside, that apparently Forces is going to be concentrating a lot more on the 2D side of the coin rather than the 3D. In Generations you had New Sonic, which was straightforward, super speed, and then you had Classic Sonic, which was 2D. Apparently Classic Sonic's going to be a much bigger part of Forces, simply because people want 2D Sonic. 3D Sonic didn't work, and it hasn't worked for years. There's been a couple of okay games in there, but nothing's been as good as the 2D game. So they are pushing forward in the right direction. And I think now with this, they need to really split this off. So you've got Sonic Team making the 3D or the newer games, and then just let Christian Whitehead and GOTY Games take Sonic Mania and just ride that train until it. I don't care. They can milk it for as long as they want, as far as I'm concerned, because I'll play that till the end of time.
Is it 2-player? Like, can you play Tails?
Yes, you can do a 2-player mode exactly like you could in Sonic 2. So split screen with one player controlling one, and you can choose between all 3 characters now because of Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails.
All right, I'm sold. I'm going to buy it.
Excellent. And on that note, let's move on. I think this one's for you, George. It's the conversation about the game of the year.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's August. We're heading into September soon here. It's getting around that time, guys. We've had quite a few games come out this year. I thought it'd be a good time to start discussing these kinds of things. What do you guys think is going to be game of the year?
Sonic.
Well, hey, that's possible, right? I mean, anything's possible. A lot of people have been pointing towards PUBG for Game of the Year.
Yes.
Yep.
And, but the question still stands, hey, that's an early access game. Technically, it's not even released yet. Should that game count? And I thought it would be an interesting thing to discuss.
Well, I suppose if PUBG actually does get a full release before the end of the year, it will count.
But what if it doesn't?
Well, if it doesn't, then I don't think it should count.
Even at this point, the market movement it's made, that it's basically taken its genre and taken it to the maximum already. Shouldn't we already recognize that? Say, well done, really.
So I just want to get straight. Toby says it should get that recognition.
Yes.
And okay.
Yeah, sorry.
What about you, Dan?
I don't know, because I've played so many games and I feel like I'm out of time. It's like, I know that the Hitman Complete Edition launched at the start of the year, although I voted Hitman as my game of the year last year. I can't really do it again, or can I? And I think a lot of people will still be talking about Resident Evil 7. That launched at the very start of the year. A lot of other stuff's launched as well.
I don't know though. See, Resident Evil 7, it burst out the gate and then just kind of disappeared very quickly. It didn't hang around very long.
it was quite it was a strong start to the year though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it burnt itself out really quickly, and to be honest, I think it's got the point because it's a single player game. It's one of those games where you play it and you might not play it again, but whereas something like PUBG is something it's going to be it's going to be constantly on your playlist if you're into it. It's going to be one of those games that you keep going. It's going to be constantly in your mind.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the list of games that came out this year, and there's a lot of good games. So we got Neo. Anybody played that? That was a great game.
It's Nier Automata. Did that come out this year, or was that last year? No, that was this year.
Both for this year, yeah. Lots of confusion on those two.
Oh, and of course we can't forget to mention the Nintendo Switch and the Zelda game that came out this year was amazing. Breath of the Wild. Come on, that was.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a contender. I can see that being a contender.
So, anyone have any personal picks? Anybody at all here?
I'm still looking. I'm looking up and down this list at the minute and going, really? I thought that came out 2 years ago. Really? Oh yeah, that did come out. Oh yeah, I really enjoyed that. Like the Wonder Boy remake. That was completely amazing. And I keep forgetting that it came out this year. But literally, that Wonder Boy remaster, the Dragon's Trap remaster, that completely redefined my expectations of remasters. Every animation was frame for frame still in the same place, but redone in an amazing new art style with amazing music. Did anyone else here play it, or am I just going to say amazing a lot?
I actually didn't play it because I wasn't actually a fan of the original. There you go. But I mean, you say that where all the animations are exactly the same, just redone in HD and all that, but that's been done before. The Monkey Island games.
I know. And you know how with the Monkey Island games you press a button and you can flick between them?
Yeah.
With this, it was done in a new art style. It was all hand drawn. Every single thing was. And when you press the button, a slider went across the screen from left to right or right to left, correcting it as it went along because every single thing was animated to a point. They didn't change the hitboxes, they didn't change anything. And the new visuals were actually more true to the hitboxes than the old one was, if that makes sense. The old one, you'd just swipe and hit the air, or you'd be hovering in the air when you stand on the edge of something. And that wouldn't happen in the new one because they corrected all of that, which I think was truly amazing. And if you hammered the button to change between the two modes, you could break it on the screen and it'd stay there. So the left-hand side of that line might be in old mode and the right-hand side might be in new mode, and you could see things cross over between them.
That's kind of cool.
That is. And they added in bonus zones for each of the characters as well, which were like challenge modes. And some of their redesigns actually indicated where the hidden doors were. That literally I had played through the first game and not known those hidden doors were there because there was no clue. But you could see them in this new one if you wanted to. That was so cool. And the music was all actually played by live like French platformers. I don't know if that's a thing, but French platformers like definitely Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends have got absolutely amazing soundtracks where they just get some guy in who's like a pro oboe player and they get a pro violinist in and they just go, make beautiful music, make it amazing. And so they do. And these musicians all perfectly remade. And I almost kind of feared that I was going to dislike them. These original songs that I loved from my youth. One of my favorite games of all time is obviously inevitably going to become one of my games of the year, as it were. But the music is almost better. There's a track of the music that they were using at the end of all of their trailers, and it was better than the original music. And the original music has so many memories for me that, without sounding really sad, I get shudders every time I hear that new version of the,
That's awesome.
Dan, I love you, but I just don't think that's going to be Game of the Year.
Actually, my Game of the Year.
Just to do a reverse segue, just for a second, back to the last topic. You brought up the music there. Just one thing I want to bring up is, obviously they've brought in these old zones from the old games. The music has been redone, but it kind of works in the same way that as the level evolves, the music evolves as well. So at the beginning of Green Hill Zone, it sounds pretty much exactly like it did on the Mega Drive. Obviously, slightly better quality because we can do that now. We're not relying on the Yamaha sound chip anymore. But as it goes through and you start getting into Act 2 and things like that, it's worked into like an up-tempo sort of remixed version of the original theme, and it sounds absolutely amazing. But that's the end of my segue, so we'll go back to the Game of the Year conversation.
Well, my personal choice is Breath of the Wild. I think that was an amazing game. We do still have a couple more games coming out later this year. We have Super Mario Odyssey coming out. That might be an amazing game that no one knows about yet. What else? We got Battlefront 2 coming out. Still a couple more games coming out this year, but all in all, it's been an interesting year for video games.
It certainly has. It's been a very strong year thus far.
Toby, what's your pick for Game of the Year, man?
It's still got to be PUBG. I haven't really played anything else that good this year. Maybe other stuff came out, but I haven't actually played it, and just finesse the genre. It's massive, enjoyable. I just really like it.
All right, fair enough.
I think it has done exactly that. It's finessed the genre. It's sold however many million versions. This isn't some blip that will be forgotten. It will be remembered as a trendsetter and an important turning point in that genre. There will be ideas from this, a bit like Minecraft, that will seep in and influence other games. We will see Ubisoft making games with elements from it in it, like how we're seeing, the big pirate movement that's coming up soon, and like how we saw crafting roll out into everything. It's going to be hard not to, when looking back at 2017, have lists topped with the new Mario game, the new Zelda game, and PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, among other titles, obviously.
Excellent. So with that, I think we'll move on. So the next topic up is one for Toby, and this is Elon Musk's recent AI.
Yes. So this is the OpenAI AI that's just won a single-player battle of Dota 2 against the human champion.
Human champion.
You puny humans!
I like that. And representing the humans, it is the human champion.
Well, at this point, we're going to have to start saying that, really, because AI is getting near to that point that while the battle isn't fully indicative, it's single 1v1, it's more focused towards getting perfect timings and such rather than a big 5-on-5. It is still that it's getting there, and also that it's played for several lifetimes. This bot has just played against itself for several lifetimes, and the ability to have AI learn from itself in that manner, that it's going to start spreading to other games, and that you can have an AI that humans do not understand, and it's coming from gaming.
Yeah.
Something's very interesting. That could gaming signal the end of the world, possibly?
I don't think it will get that far. I don't think it will go that far, to be honest, because in this situation, the AI is completely, just controlling a game. But I do see an application of this where you could use a bot for quality control on a game, or even just for games that are running in the esports realm. Just seeing what a computer does and taking that data and using it to develop new tactics and things, because like what you said, that it's not human. It's going to be able to do stuff that humans technically might be able to do but haven't thought of. And I think it could become almost like a training thing. So here's a new game, we're going to chuck a couple of bots in it, let them play it for a few lifetimes, and then just go, oh well, it can do that. That's quite cool. We didn't design the game to do that, but it's done it. That's awesome. And then a human can take that and
I don't know. I don't know about AIs ending the world, but I think MOBAs have been a sign of the apocalypse for a long time. And if you see the people who play those games, they're just vile human beings. I'm not making any friends here today. I know that, but come on. Everybody knows that it's a vile community. Sometimes there's just a lot of just spiteful, just putrid things that come out of these people's mouths.
To be honest, I don't think that's specifically an esports / Dota thing. I think that's more just young people basically becoming famous thing, and they just get that overinflated sense of importance.
I don't think it has anything to do with it. I think people are just been vile in general when it comes to that type of game.
They are not. They don't create a good player interaction.
So yeah, AI will not take over the world. I think we're just going to blow each other up.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the people who do play esports professionally, I mean, I suppose, yes, like a real sport, you have to take it seriously. But when it comes to gaming, surely it's something you do for fun. If you start taking it too seriously, surely it then sucks the fun out of it. And how, I wouldn't be able to play a game in an esports situation because it just wouldn't be fun. It would be a job at that point.
But AIs can't have fun, Terry.
Well, that's true. Maybe we should just get rid of humans playing games completely in esports and just have bots against bots. It would probably be much more entertaining to watch.
That's a really good point, actually. Did anybody follow the Civilization match between all of the AIs?
I saw something about that a while ago.
I remember it took forever.
Yeah, they had problems, but that was really good, actually. That was really interesting to see how it turned out. And I actually quite enjoyed watching. I think I enjoyed watching that more than I would have enjoyed reading an after action report from a bunch of human players, although I've not seen such a thing organised. But it is sometimes interesting to see how AI plays out against each other, although not necessarily if they have the power to destroy the world.
Yeah, because like I was saying, you'll see them doing stuff that you would never have thought of, and I think that's a good application for it.
We have AIs play matches for the whole of the human population to watch, and then the losing AI gets its code wiped.
Survival of the...
Yeah.
Oh, so kind of a new 21st century gladiatorial combat kind of thing.
Yeah,
Loser
bring back blood
dies.
sports
Well,
in the form of AI.
It'd be code sports.
That sounds mean.
Yeah, you're kind of wondering why AI is going to suddenly rebel against us.
Yeah. Toby, you're causing the end of the world right there.
But then, like less than 7 minutes on the topic now, and Toby's like, we should make them fight to the death.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, but in that situation, would you create the AI in such a way that it understands that if it loses, it would die?
It would make it very interesting.
It knows that losing in the game is bad, so hence it would have a concept of death in some form or manner.
Yeah,
I suppose there is that. But I'm just in my head now. I've just got the image of like a digital scream as it's deleted.
Like that scene from 2001.
Yeah, with it talking and it slowly just tails off and gets slower and lower pitched.
There's gonna be groups trying to save AIs now. I just see it now. Just signs, people holding signs outside the events.
AI is a people too. I fight for AI rights.
You monsters! You monsters!
It'll get to that point, though. I guarantee you, it'll get to that point.
I don't want to be any part of this.
But no, what I thought was interesting was what was Terry bringing up was the idea of kind of like using it as a coaching tool. I think that's actually a really good idea. Is kind of watching what an AI would do, and then kind of like following up and say, hey, do this better. This is what the AI did. Maybe we could try this tactic. I think that's kind of actually a really interesting idea, and that has applications for more than just gaming, beyond just that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's already happened. Like a guy called I don't know if you've heard of him. A guy called Seth Bling used to be a giant Minecrafter YouTuber doing massive redstone creations, but he started to get into coding and programming and things. And he made a sort of a neural net based AI and just chucked it at Mario World. And over time, it learned how to do the levels pretty much perfectly. And he actually discovered as a tiny skip that speedrunners then started to use in real life. So it's already started to happen. And this was a simple one that one guy made in his bedroom, not a big, massive company that's made this huge thing that's running on massive servers. It was just literally an app that he built.
I do have to ask one question. Isn't Elon Musk doing important things? What does he have the time for Dota for? I mean, come on. Isn't this guy supposed to be...
It's his time off.
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose in a way it's a safe environment for an AI to learn decision making and all that kind of stuff without it going, oh, do I shoot the old woman or the young kid? we'll just chuck them at a video game instead. It's still going to learn skills that will be able to be reused in other situations.
He mains Soldier 76 in Overwatch, just in case anybody cared.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, which.
Yep.
Yeah.
If he's wiping his butt with $100 bills, I'm sure he does.
When you say he mains, do you mean his AI mains Soldier 76 in Overwatch?
But that's a good point. He could just set that off and, hey, I keep winning. That's weird. I mean, my closing point, my closing remark on this outstanding conversation that I do hope will continue to come up is that 15 or 20 years ago, if I lost a game, I'd accuse the computer of cheating. Because the computer knew all of the rules, right? They were coded to know what the win conditions are. There's no reason why somebody couldn't build an AI opposition that could just go, right, and that's it, I win, and just like wipe everything on the board. So it's really fascinating that we're teaching AI to play within the rules to the best of their capacity, rather than just saying, these are the win conditions and this is how people normally learn. And it's not cheating, if that makes sense.
My final thing I want to contribute then is a Matthew Broderick movie. Anybody remember War Games? Anybody?
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's all I'm going to bring forward. That's all I'm going to say.
To be honest, at the moment we've got more of a chance of a terrible human being pushing the nuclear war button than an AI.
Oh, my politics klaxon broke. I was meant to politics klaxon over that.
Oh no, no politics. This is all about gaming, please.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So next up, apparently George is not a chipmunk, which is a good fact to know.
Am I?
Oh, that'll have to come up on a future podcast. So we've got Dan talking about a greater than observer _
Yes. It ties in quite well, actually, to the AI conversation and the fact that we're talking about computer games as well, because basically this is set in the relatively near future, i.e. some of the characters that are turning up dead are born in kind of 2055, etc. So this is born at the end of this century. There's been a horrible disaster. A lot of people were chilling out in full immersion computer games and such, and then there was a big war and yada yada yada. It's the future. Cyberpunk. There's a lot of modern day tech there. So there's kind of modern day looking cars, modern day looking CRT TV screens, but there's this kind of big high tech theme running through it as well, because it is very close to Cyberpunk, but it's a dark and a gritty and a messy and a bloody one, which ties into obviously Bloober Team's previous releases, which were, I can't remember what they're called now. What was the series called? They made two of them.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm gonna have to look this up now. Either way, so they are known for their jump scares. They are known for making cinematic games with strong narratives that are very leading, and that works quite well in this setting because it's an unknown setting, just like a kind of horror setting, and you go through a claustrophobic apartment block and you're trying to investigate what's happened to your son, and basically you find a body and then you find another body and another body, and the plot thickens, and you're actually doing pretty close to detective work. You're interrogating people, albeit you're doing this by diving into their minds using your weird snake skull drill thing, and yeah, you're interrogating people, you're finding clues, which you do with a kind of like detective view. You've got two different scanners, one which can read chemicals and one which can read objects and find out information on them. And it's quite it's a really interesting setting and a really interesting bunch of abilities, I suppose, that you've got, although I wouldn't call them abilities because you don't unlock them per se. But and it's something that I hope that they explore again. What I would say is I'm not particularly comfortable with jump scares. It wasn't a game that I was looking forward to getting, especially because I heard that with the previous game that they'd made, they had a habit of leading you down a corridor. Oh no, the door is locked. And as you turn around, it goes, wah! And somebody, appears directly next to you. And yeah, they do that a lot in this game. And yeah, I spent a lot of time walking through doors, deliberately looking at the floor, knowing that if I turn around sideways, I can't actually see what they're trying to get me to look at, etc. So I did play it like a little coward. But then there was a point, probably about a third of the way through the game, where the game actually killed me. Something came out of somewhere, grabbed me and killed me, was right up in my face, and that's it. I was dead, and all of a sudden, it all kind of it lost its power over me, if that makes sense. It broke the fear of, oh my god, something's going to kill me, because something actually did just come out and kill me, and so yeah, it kind of lost its fear over me.
So the dying actually just made the game not as exciting?
Yeah, not as scary, not as tense. I mean, it's still got a nice tense vibe to it when you're exploring these claustrophobic hallways and going through this apartment block that used to be a normal, like, modern day apartment block, and they've blown through walls to make new corridors and bolted on these big electric doors as they've modernized what remains of these buildings. You know, that feels tense. And sometimes people talk to you from behind these doors, and sometimes, you know, robots or something burst out and move around. But once it had killed me, at least, you know, the kind of like, oh no, something's going to grab me and kill me effect was gone, because I knew that actually, you know, that's not really that much of a punishment. It's just going to send me back to a checkpoint. And it kind of lost that immersion at that point. I can't think of any other games where that's happened. But then I don't play very many horror games, I've got to admit.
Was the story good? I mean, spoiler. I mean, was it good? Or was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was all a bit weird, because, like I said, you're tracking down your son, and it's very much, like I said, detective work. You go somewhere, you find a body, you jack into it. I suppose jacking into it's probably the best term. And depending on how kind of drug-addled they were, or how horrible their death was, or if they're a willing participant, you have experiences that are either, the first one is completely nuts. It's like literally walls being torn away from you, walk up to a glass window and a bird just smashes into it, you know, and random screaming people, and you being chased through a prison, and all sorts of bloody horrible things. But then later ones are relatively peaceful, and you kind of, you break the rules of the mind police by jacking into a corpse because you're so desperate to find your son, which is very hard to believe, because Rutger Hauer's acting feels, you know, he's got quite a gruff voice and quite a emotionless voice anyway, and sometimes he really does feel like he's just reading off a sheet of paper. But no, I thought the story was good. I thought the setting, like I said, was amazing. They play a lot with symbology, which is really, really good. Like, all the way through the first bit of the game, there's DVDs and books and tapes about the genophage, which is this virus that gets into people's chips, because 99% of what's left of humanity have implants, and it turns them mad and evil, and it can infect other people from being near them. And then there's also loads of stuff that's like anti-establishment, because there aren't governments now, there's just businesses. And then there's also loads of stuff about werewolves, like loads and loads of stuff about werewolves. So it's almost impossible to not think, well, what if it's like a werewolf then? And you start seeing things moving out of the corner of your eye that are big and hulking, and you're like, it's a werewolf, isn't it? And then, you know, and it does a really good job of leading you to believe things. And while I don't really like games that try and come across like they are controlling the situation and they know more than you, I do think that the team did a really good job with this one. And like I said, right up until I got killed, I was, you know, looking at the floor as I rounded corners, and, you know, I was playing it really carefully and thoroughly. But yeah, once they killed me, that kind of fear did shake. But yeah, the setting was brilliant, and visuals were beautiful, and yeah, it's interesting. I hope they make more.
That's one thing I have to say. It sounded really cool, but I think cyberpunk as a genre has yet to have a really, really good game yet. Kind of one that kind of like picked up and everyone's played. I want to see that happen, for there to be a cyberpunk game that just really blows our minds.
Well, Project Red, or CD Projekt Red, are working on their next game, which is Cyberpunk 2077, which is obviously a similar time frame, although I believe it's a completely different, you know, it's complete. Both of them are unrelated to William Gibson. Both of them are inventions of different places. Mike Pondsmith, I believe, came up with Cyberpunk 2077, and I think the other one was completely come up with by Bloober Team. Obviously, because it's CD Projekt Red, who have done amazing things and are very, very consistent, I'm expecting Cyberpunk 2077, which is due to launch probably just before 2077, knowing how much they've shown off. But yeah, I do think that Cyberpunk 2077, when it launches, could really be that breakthrough, and we could see a big interest in sci-fi. Because when times are tough geopolitically, people do turn to science fiction a lot as well. So we are on the cusp of a lot of science fiction stuff. I mean, the films are already there, aren't they? And we're starting to see it in TV shows as well. And as this kind of current surge of superhero films ends, we'll see even more science fiction stuff. And I think games will follow. And hopefully there'll be some cyberpunk stuff as well, because they can be really interesting games. It's a really good setting.
Oh, heck yeah, I completely agree.
The game name that I was trying to think of, the series name, was Layers of Fear.
Oh, that weird game. I played that for about 10 minutes and then went, nope, just turned it off.
I'm guessing you stopped for similar reasons to the reason I really didn't want to pick up the game.
Yeah, it's creepy games. I mean, I stopped playing Amnesia before I even saw a monster, just because the atmosphere of that game is intense. And I just couldn't take it. I can't do scary games.
So will we be seeing a review on the website for this game, Dan?
Yeah, the review's probably about 90% written up. I've got to get a couple of more screenshots for it and transfer it over to the site. I'd imagine it will probably be up next week. If not that, then early the week after. So before September, one should think.
Awesome. Look forward to reading it.
Indeed. And with that, I think that heralds the end of this week's Big Boss Babble podcast. So I'd like to thank the members of B3 that have joined us this week. So thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, George.
You're welcome, I guess.
And thank you to Toby.
Thank you. Good night.
Yes. So it's goodbye from all of us, and we'll see you again next week.